morning, folks. Tired Monday morning. Tesla's popping up in my world. I'm okay with it. People aren't interested in environmentalism, they're interested in tax breaks. And that $7,500 tax credit. You know, it's a pretty good thing if you have to buy a car, right? I think that cars are going to be going electric in the next decade. The government has made it pretty clearly incentivized. If you're on one side of the aisle, you've got your reasons. If you're on the other side of the aisle, you've got your reasons, right? It's business, it's decreasing dependence on fossil fuels as the world becomes an increasingly unstable place that requires foreign trade for energy. If you can reduce anything to electricity, then from a national security perspective, not only do you have the cooperation of industry, you can use any fuel to make electricity, ultimately nuclear, coal, whatever. But you've also got the people dependent on the government, which I think a lot of people in the government want that on both sides. They want people hooked. You can't drive your car without us. We can ground your car over the air if we think you're a threat to national security. That's where it's going. I don't think it's bad or good, but maybe if you can shut down the car of a school shooter on his way to the school, there's nobody in government who's going to say no to the power to do that. Control. Kind of weird thoughts to have first thing in the morning, but I studied government. Sometimes I just want to kind of pull up close to one of these cars and see if they bump forward automatically. I won't ever do it, but it's been an interesting idea I've had. Can you spook a self-driving car? I'm sure you can. The sensors have come a long ways in the last 5-6 years. There was one claim in the news that talked about how a Tesla could not distinguish the difference between the white sky and the white view of the white color of a dry van trailer. So a truck is crossing a highway, the sensor comes on it and doesn't see the truck part, the sensor only sees this bright white. The sensor stays going at full speed, 65 miles an hour. The guy is watching a movie, not paying attention, or controlling the car. And the Tesla drives right under the tractor trailer. And it goes underneath the dry van part, outside the tandems, and you know, just the like Clark Griswold kind of thing, except sideways, perpendicular. And it took off the top of the car and the top of the guy's head, killing him. The car kept going quite some time. The car did not. It's interesting to wonder how the car knew to stop, because somehow it knew there was a crash, but it did keep going quite some time, and it crashed ultimately into a fixed object, a pole or tree or something, and And that was that. And the fellow actually had YouTube videos that he made. They were not like mine. He liked showing off his car. He was sort of a tech geek. And on his YouTube channel, I'm not sure if it's still up, but on his YouTube channel, he would do things like sit in the back seat of the car while it was self-driving. And he really believed in this technology and wanted it to be adopted. He wasn't an owner of Tesla or anything. He was just, he had his own technology firm. And, ultimately, he was tragically taken down by, but, one of the things I've thought about this fellow is that he died in order to make this technology better. And in a way, he had no children or family, and in a way, I think he loves that. I think he loves that he got to make a mark on the development of this technology, to make it better, to make it safer, to make everyone slow down a little bit and improve it, and ultimately result in a product that is more scalable and saleable to the American people. And if that was really his goal and his passion, it's tragic to pass it, your early 40s, but at the same time, his passing had meaning that went beyond the average. And I don't think there's going to be anyone who could dispute that that individual has made a contribution to technology and safety that really had nothing to do with his own enterprise, which was separate and about something else. Well, I'm obviously back in a headspace that is more productive today. I've spent days exhaustingly going over my situation. Yesterday I finally crashed and I drank some wine and watched a ball game from a suite there at the ballpark, and finally just had time where I wasn't thinking about it. I think I've had some biological consequences, some stress hormones and anxiety, and my wife tried giving me a very mundane pill to help with the anxiety, and it worked, but it resulted in sort of a Benadryl type hangover yesterday morning, and I didn't like that at all. So again, I'm not a big medicine person. I don't think they solve problems. I think they solve immediate concerns, but ultimately have long-term issues. I find it remarkable that doctors can, they work on a patient who's, say, in poor health at age 80 years old. How in the world do you diagnose and treat these problems when you've also got a person who's on 5 different medications with all the different side effects? I mean, you practically need artificial intelligence to factor all these different things that go on from the medication. And so one of my personal passions is to avoid medications for as long as possible. I may not be able to do it forever, but as long as I can, I want to stay off the system. Because once you're in the system, man, you need your meds. They can charge you whatever they want. They own you. You're going to go off your meds, what's going to happen? What happens after your body's been adjusted to something? And who's going to control your access to that? It's a very insecure feeling for me personally. Because, this especially applies to mental health medications. If you don't have access to those for whatever reason, economical, physical, factors beyond your control, right? Think about this baby formula shortage. Suddenly the factory just shut down one day, and they just couldn't make as much. What happens if that occurs for medication? I'm sure there might be stockpiles, but we all know that they expire. Or they say they expire. Something in the medication expires or becomes problematic. We have millions of people in this country who rely on medications. There are vulnerabilities in our system. And if I can avoid that risk, I will. The tires on this Tesla I am intrigued by. They're very wide, very thick. You don't see tires like that on non-SUVs. Now this might be their sad excuse for an SUV. What do we talk about SUVs? They're trying to recreate the safety of a truck. They're trying to be a little bit high and a little bit heavy, but they're not high and they're not heavy. In the Tesla example especially, it needs aerodynamics and it needs to offset the weight of the battery, because the battery is a killer. For fuel efficiency, well, I should just say efficiency, the battery is a problem. So what do? You have to offset the weight of that battery and all the other components of the vehicle. That means everything has to be plastic. Everything has to be thin. If it is metal, make it thin, right? We all know that the thickness of steel affects its weight, its strength, and I'm going for this light. I'm just not feeling it today. Yeah, okay, I did it. But whatever. Anyways, there wasn't even a car at the light, you know? It's like, what would I have been waiting for? Anyways, don't try to use that against me. A little bit late getting out of the house today. Not late. Maybe a little bit. I don't know why I care. Even when I quit my last job, I showed up quite diligently until my last day. I gave them back the cell phone. They probably wouldn't have even wanted the cell phone, quite frankly. But I gave it back because I felt like it was the right thing to do. When I quit a job or sell a house, the manner in which I do so is very important to me. I treat people the way that I would want to be treated. And, you know, the situation I'm in now is a little bit different. But I can't let the story be about me, because that's not what it's about. If I leave, I can't make it about me doing something wrong or being unprofessional or whatever. I need the story to be about my grievances, not about me. Well, yesterday was very cold and windy. Rough day to be at the ballpark. We lost. I didn't get a pretzel. It's a shame. Wish I had. I had to go out and get one, but I had so much other food there that it wasn't much of a sense. grounds are necessary for their location, for locating them by motorists around them. I think the biggest issue for motorcycles is visibility, being remembered and being seen by other motorists. And those loud mufflers, whatever they are on motorcycles, they are absolutely essential. Because when you hear that unique sound, you need to be on the lookout. And not only do you need to be on the lookout, but you need to be on high alert as a driver for the entire time that motorcycle is within your orbit. Because you don't know what they're going to do. And it's not that they're going to do something necessarily bad. It's that they have a right to exist, and you have to look out for them. Whatever it is they're going to do, you've got to make sure you don't hit them. And your blind spots are implicated, everything is off with the motorcycle. How many motorcycles have I captured on my channel here? I would say less than a dozen over several hours of footage. Granted, it was winter, but my point is that they're not frequently seen in terms of the number of vehicles on the road. And if they are, they're not on my commute, right? Because this is highway driving. This isn't a place you go to have fun on a motorcycle. So if you are on different roads, on new roads, looking for new things, gosh, I wish I'd filmed my trip out south the other day, because there were deer crossing the road everywhere. And it was startling how many deer. I probably had a deer blocking my road at least a dozen times over 2 hours. And the obstacles are there, you don't know to look for them. With a motorcycle, especially with lane changes, things like that, just always be careful. Is it our responsibility to care for people who are being reckless? To some extent, yes. They don't have a covering around them to protect them. Sometimes they don't even have a helmet on. But at the end of the day, if you strike that motorcycle, you're probably going to pay for it. Whether you actually caused the crash or not. You've got a severely injured person who may need a lifetime of care, who may have lost who's now unable to work, might have a family, and someone's got to pay for that. Who's it going to be? Is it going to be the disability regime? Maybe. Is it going to be your insurance policy? Likely. Is it going to be your personal assets? Potentially. And here's how this works. Let's say you're in a crash with a motorcycle and you're not sure it's your fault. But it could be your fault. Let's say the person is catastrophically injured or dead. Let's say it's someone, who either earned a lot of money or needs a lot of money for future care. What do? Let's say you've done well for yourself and you've got $1 million in assets. Well, let's say the guy's claim is worth $10 million, and all they need to say is that you're 10% at fault for his $10 million claim, so you owe us your $1 million. And that's where it gets pretty dicey. I have insurance at that level, and if you don't have insurance at that level, you need to look at your asset net worth and have appropriate insurance. Because if you don't, then they go after your house equity. They go after whatever it is that you have that the bankruptcy regime won't take is what is on the table. And the homestead exemptions, I'm not familiar with what they are now, but basically when you declare bankruptcy, you can keep personal effects. Sometimes it's a home up to maybe $200,000 value. Well, if your home has got equity of, say, $400,000, then you either have to take a loan against your home for the other $200,000 and pay it to the other people, or you have to sell the house and split the liquidation appropriately. And you have to work with the lawyer for the injured person to make this happen. And at the end of the day, you should be thanking them for it. Because what you're doing is getting finality to what could be a very unpleasant situation. They could garnish 25% of your wages for the rest of your life if they want to. Or you find a resolution and just pay it off, It's not a great place to be, to have to pay for an accident out of your own pocket. And they can take the insurance money, or in reality what they're going to do is decline the insurance money until they are confident that your personal assets have also not been exhausted. Your additional insurance has not been exhausted, whatever it may be. And it's a really unpleasant place to be in for a person who had an accident. For most of us, it's, are we okay? Does our car need fixed? But sometimes it's my life changed forever. Is everything I worked for going to go to someone else? And we've seen this in different societies. Some societies have a system, what's called blood money. You've injured me, so my family must be paid by your family. These concepts go back thousands of years. And it's interesting to watch them manifest themselves in 2023 paved roads, motorized vehicles. It's a really interesting intersection of history and technology, in my opinion. But don't get caught with your pants down. Those people who are hawking insurance, they annoy the crap out of me, if I'm being honest. Because I know how they get paid. And they're basically taking, that guy's over the line, they're basically taking my money and keeping some for themselves. And every month I pay my insurance, they get a little piece of it. I don't like it. It sits unwell with me. It does not sit well with me. For whatever reason. But you also have to ask yourself, do you need the protection? And most of us need protection. I've had people take loans against their retirement to cover claims, or cash in a retirement, whatever it is. What a terrible thing to have to do, personally. I just think about myself. Imagine if you had to cash in your retirement or take a loan against your home for the sole purpose of paying someone else. It's nauseating. But it wouldn't happen if something hadn't happened. That's why safety is so important. That's why thinking is so important. If you can think your way into preventing something, you'll never know you've prevented something. But if you can do your very best, then it's the closest thing you can have to confidence. Confidence that you're safe. Confidence that your family's safe. That from a physical perspective. If you can prevent an accident, you can prevent yourself from having something you never come back from. Part of that's a function of my somewhat young age. If health goes south in my 60s, that's practically to be expected. But if I lose 20 years from the 40s to the 60s, that's a tremendous loss of enjoyment. So you can see this trailer up to my left here, one lane over. It had a really muddy, it had tracks of mud sort of on the wood deck from some kind of heavy machinery that was parked on the trailer. So they've either just gone and dropped off something and they're going back to drop the trailer, whatever it is. But the mud contained rocks. And as that mud dried up or whatever, eventually loosened up, it flew off on the highway. Frankly, that is something I never considered a real possibility before. But it's also a very predictable problem. It's a level of defensive driving that even I'm not at. Right? To think that the mud and the rocks on this, equipment hauler might blow off on the road. There's really no limit to the amount of assessing, analyzing, and preparation that you can do as a defensive driver. And eventually you have to reach a point where you're not mentally exhausted from doing it, right? Because theoretically you could obsess to an unhealthy level, to where you're not paying attention to what's in front of you. You're so busy focusing on trees that you don't see the forest, kind of thing. And I think in my instance, my brain naturally finds that zone. It knows how to conserve the power that it has in a highway driving situation. But not everybody may have that. And that's something to think about. Filled up my car yesterday, and I'm down to 3/4 of a tank already. Yesterday. I didn't even drive to work yesterday. I'm questioning. The gas has become quite expensive. I'm questioning my fuel economy. I'm going to push the button. It says I'm getting 16.5 miles per gallon. 16.5. Which is really pretty decent. An SUV, 7,000 pounds. I'm not disappointed by that number. If I don't like how much gas I'm using, I need to drive less, or drive more efficiently. But ultimately driving less. I mean, yesterday I took a drive out to the ballpark and back, back from the gas station and back from someone else's house, and so those little trips add up to. But yesterday afternoon, it's just nuts to me how quickly a quarter tank goes. And a quarter tank these days costs me about $15 to $20, I think. Closer to 15, but a little more than 15. And I still have to drive home tonight. Woofy woof. Well, I don't have to wear a mask today. It's a new freedom. had to. It was funny when someone saw me wearing it. They thought it was a personal choice I made, and it really wasn't. It was a fairly strict dictate from the HR department. And when I explained that was an HR rule, they said, "Well, good for you for following the rules." I guess it is good for me for complying with what was asked of me. Sounds like maybe others don't do it.